AJ is playing a gig today.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, that was Thank you, everybody. Oh, what a great band.
Start,
Um,
Kim Makari.
so someone asked a question during your performance. Well, it's a nice open question, which is, can you talk about Kenny Wheeler?
Somebody asked me that also in the Facebook, or was that
Yes.
that was in the Facebook chat. I mean, what is there to say about Kenny Wheeler? You can tell me more than I can, because he's from where you live. At least he
Yes.
was.
Where did you come across him?
Banff, the Banff Center for the Fine Arts.
And he was teaching?
He was teaching. I spent a few fine weeks with him. What can I say? It just, I also grew up listening to his music early on. And it took me a while to get to the point where I felt like I could honor his spirit when I was playing my trumpet and honor his deep legacy.
Is he sort of considered a Canadian national treasure as he is a UK one?
I don't really know. I mean, in my book, he is, definitely. On that concert, what we played was the first tune. I think I explained it in the opening. Was My Old Friend by Sam Amadon, who I discovered through a friend of mine playing me a track with Kenny on it. And then I realized, after coming back from hanging out with my good friend Nick Smart, that I had never really played My Old Man. So the two of those linked up quite nicely together in spirit. And and really, it's this time we're in. I know we haven't talked about the music yet, but to me, that I'm still sort of in that space of what we were just listening to, because it was so much work to do. Yeah. And so to answer that question right away, maybe we can come back to it. But I think it's more about the moment we're in now, how music relates to this moment. So if you have any questions along those lines, I'd rather maybe go there first.
Sure. Yeah. So when we asked you to do this, what made you pick the pieces that you did? What was your thinking behind what you played?
First, I should talk about the band, because we have limited resources when it comes to musicians right now in person. And we're still we're in stage 4 here in New York, but we're also being very careful. Fourth stage of opening as far as COVID goes. We had a very rough run at first, but now where we are now, the village I live in, there's been, I think, 12 cases in the last week. So we're doing well. And we're working hard as a community. So the band really contributes to, it's really nice to have the luxury of going, okay, I have either this quartet or this quartet to play with. And in this case, I actually did another live stream a little while back with Alex Smith on organ and Nate as well on guitar. And my husband, John. So I have a living drummer. I have a guitar player down the street who's married to Chris Davis. And that's why this band came together. And those, the family connection between husband and wives is very unique these days. It feels more, for all of us to get together, it feels more like family than ever because we get to step out of our little bubbles of teaching online and just step into the moment and play.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think I mentioned also in the intro, I'm not sure if everyone heard it, but if you didn't, in the introduction, I talked about how some of this music was in the book. We probably played round trip about 10 times on the front yard during our yard season of concerts. It started about mid-March after the shutdown happened. We just started playing, a bunch of us, sometimes duo, sometimes solo, sometimes trio, sometimes quartet. And there's no time to rehearse. It was just like hit, play. So there was some common material that I started to come up with, but I found myself on a daily basis, whenever we would do these concerts, coming up with relevant music, at least to me, what was relevant. Alone Together was one of our first kind of corny choices, but nothing against the song. It's a great song. But, we went through the real book of all of the solitudes and all of those, apropos titles. But then things got deeper as the lockdown went on and as our social justice and gender justice as well issues started to really, really come to a forefront because now we're at home thinking and talking and reading and obviously listening to possibly too much news. But at least, as a community, we all came together. So my community in my neighborhood actually dictated a lot of what I did, which went from, Somewhere Over the Rainbow to Ornette Coleman. The essential workers love to hear things like We Shall Overcome. It was really interesting to see how the music developed. So it's a very long answer to how I picked tunes for this, but honestly, it all just bubbled up into me. And in relation to the band and the way I know that these guys, when we get together, we can just do anything. I mean, these are spectacular musicians. So, from the first tune, which was a folky thing, kind of a romp over Sam's tune. I hope he enjoyed what I did to it if he hears it one day. Then the My Old Man Kenny tune, which I'm still internalizing and learning. And then the third tune was one that came definitely from this moment we're in here when John Lewis passed. I was, I'm sure you all watched the beautiful Obama speech and more. But John Lewis was a legend. And so I wrote a tune about voter rights called Dirty Bubbles. And the rest of the tunes, just one of mine and the Ornette tune. And then Jerry Allen was a tune I just found in my recycle bin. I was like, how did that get in my recycle bin? This is a great tune. So we pulled that one out. It really, to say it fell in my lap and the band fell in my lap. They just drove up the street and away we went.
How are you guys coping with lockdown?
We recorded that concert. That's one way. We probably are making more music and faster, getting to more music on a higher level. Maybe it's not as high as what people want to hear, but for us, we mean high as in spirit. What it does, what music does essentially now is a little different than what it did before. There's a lot of issues in that recording where I go, yeah, I wouldn't release that yet. I'd shed those tunes more and probably will rehearse or not, or we'll do a couple more takes. But to do something on the fly for most of what everyone heard there, that was live. It was just recorded live. We didn't do a bunch of takes. We did one take of each tune. And some of the tunes we literally just, sniffed the head a little bit and went for it.
I think that during the performance art piece, we might have lost some of the chat about the studio. So it's been a while since we visited your house, but you've got a studio in the basement now that you never used to have.
That's right. John has been soundproofing. It's not just a pretty wood you see behind us. It's actual state-of-the-art soundproofing like in a real studio. So it sounds amazing already and it's half done. And when it's fully complete, maybe we'll do another show and everyone can
Did
see the
lockdown prompt you to start that work, or was John already working on it when everything shut down?
It was probably in the back of his mind, but John is one of these people, my husband, who does not take crisis lying down. He says, what can I make out of this moment here? So since both of us had gigs and tours canceled and teaching completely, knocked off the books as far as guest artist things. I do a lot of traveling, do guest artist shows. He does a lot of traveling, especially in Scandinavia and playing over there. Darcy's band, all that stuff was taken off the books. I think he saw this moment as something, as a time to get really take his hands to another level of creativity. He's always doing incredible things. I wouldn't call them hobbies. I call them artistic creations. So in this case, out of necessity, really, we're going to end up with a beautiful space to move forward with.
Hmm. He did he build? I remember following progress online of him building like a playhouse. Feels like it shouldn't. A little structure outside.
Beautiful little house in the backyard, which I'm thinking we're going to turn into a sauna. Similar look to this, but it's got a skylight. Yeah, he's very handy, and as you could tell on the drums, he is extremely handy.
Sure. So, does it feel like that group of people, with Chris and with Nate, does it feel like that band lives beyond lockdown?
I think it does. I don't know. What do you think? I don't care, because we just get together and play like we're romping in the backyard with our kids.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's a really cool sound. Rhodes, trumpet with effects, guitar, drums. Yeah, definitely.
So there's a question about Chris, about you, how long you've worked together, and in what different contexts you have played together. So I saw when Chris was doing her residency at the Stone, you guys.
You were there. That's right. When we did the Andrew Hill music.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. So when did you and Chris first start to work together?
It's very strange. We didn't play much in the last 10 years, I think, because both of us had children and got into different streams within our worlds of playing. Cross paths, but didn't really hit the way we did in this project here until recently with Terry Lynn. We went to North Texas and did a really cool concert there, and afterwards it was like, I guess we should not play more together. In other words, we have to book some things, and this was perfect for me. It was like, yay, I can get her up in my basement and we can just create, just make a little stew of sounds. And Nate, her husband, on guitar is like, I take him completely for granted because he listens so hard, and he really supports. And we've been playing like a band probably for 3 months now with him and John and Alex, the organist, who we did another project with. So that's my next answer to your question, is I have a couple of irons in the fire thanks to COVID, where other people aren't playing at all. I feel like I've really formed some deep relationships with some amazing musicians who live close to me.
I guess that's the nice thing, because you travel so much, and now you've been at home for a big chunk of time, which probably is not usual for your normal this time of year normally, right?
Very strange. Yeah, at the end of June, I was supposed to be in Europe for 2 weeks with our daughter. She was going to actually come on tour with me with a band from Stanford, California. That was all canceled. I try not to reflect too much on what was taken out of the books, because it is surreal to think about it. It's like there was all this stuff, and now I'm home. And it's not a bad surreal. It's actually, for me, it's a really cool way of I feel the planet even is saying, just stay home, kick back, get some stuff done, watch your
Yeah.
child grow. And in that sense, it's been really, and in a lot on a lot of levels, it's been really, really rewarding and really inspiring.
Have you been listening to more music than usual?
Good question. Yes and no. I mean, sometimes on my computer, because I have to lead a jazz department in the times of COVID at the Manhattan School of Music. I started that July 1st. And when I work, I can't really listen to music. I try to put on some John Taylor or something that's not completely over the top heavy bashing, although John Taylor can be like that. But you know what I mean? Like really stillness music that helps me stay in my focus space. But what happens then is I go off and I start listening to it and analyzing it. So I actually listen to music that would be considered, it's not even music. It's actually like a brainwave focusing tool. And I get so much, just a lot done when I do that. And then I find when I'm listening to music, I hear more in the music
Sure.
that I'm involved with.
Yeah. Daniel and I have spoken before. Obviously, he studied with your sister Christine, and we've talked about the stuff that you've done with Whirlwind, with Mike Janish's label.
Mm-hmm.
How did that come about? Why did you decide to work with Whirlwind?
I see that. Why choose a British label to work with? Well, first of all, because Mike Janish is amazing. He's brilliant. And his label is a reflection of his work ethic and his consciousness of where the music is at. He's very, very astute as far as his listening spectrum goes. Yet he's not trying to define anybody on his label and say, this is this person that plays this way. It's more about a presentation of some different views of artists in relation to their bands. So it was just a really good fit for our music. Christine and I felt very good about putting Infinitude on that label, and it seems to really fit, as well as the Kenny Wheeler project. Why not? Kenny was British and Canadian, and also to take it a step further, when now that I know Mike more and have seen it's really very rare that someone runs a label on that level of being that great of a musician, and then also having things artistically, so as far as the vision of the label goes, so I don't know what the word is, but just exciting. I'm going to say exciting. So exciting. So that it's not just another label with a bunch of demos. It's like everybody's music. Every record I listen that comes out on that label is a beautiful reflection of the artist who is presenting it, and you get to know them that way.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a sort of really beautiful sensibility when it's an artist themselves who's running the label.
Which is very rare, because usually they are taking care of their own music. And then when we were over there recently, when we came over to do the big band work with him, he just like blew both of Christine and my minds. We're just like, how he gets on stage and plays and he organizes, and yeah, he's just a powerhouse. It's really.
He seems to be able to find like extra hours in the day that no one else has access to.
I think his time management skills might be worth studying for all of us.
Yeah.
Me included.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
also just the purpose, to have purpose right now. I feel really bad for people who are like, oh, I'm so sad, this is such a sad time. I'm like, really? I'm sorry that it comes across that way, because it's sad. There's a lot of change going on that may be creating some sadness, because we're becoming aware of how much we suck as humans on certain levels, and how much change has to happen. That's the sad part, maybe. But in the sense of having purpose and mission, and some a vision that goes beyond just the moment. I think this time we're in right now is really kind of exciting for that.
I think we're really lucky to do the job that we do, because having lots of time feels like this wonderful luxury because you have so much that you want to do with it. I guess it must be very difficult if you have like a really strict kind of 9 to 5 job. You've had it for a long time, and suddenly you're at home. And I think that removal of that structure must be a big change for a lot of people.
Funny you bring that up, Kim. I mean, I discuss with my therapist how to keep that fine balance. I'm working up in my top office of the house here, but my child is downstairs. So normally I would be either on the road doing a lot of my business stuff, or in this case, I may go to my office one of these days. We'll see, in Manhattan. But as it is now, to keep that focus and to bounce one foot in family and one foot in the other thing, is, I think it's that part of it is where everyone has to really work. We all have to work on our restructuring and our revision of what that was, because even as musicians, we just sort of have a 9 to 5 thing once it comes to that structure of being on tour and the things that come along with that. It's like, I got to shed this music now, I got to pack, I've got to do this, I got to get my kids school already, okay, now I can go. And then there's the management from the road on that too. But it's yeah, it's interesting.
You doing the homeschooling thing with Corinna? Did you have to be teacher as well?
John took over on that too, because I was busy teaching 10 students in a comp class and doing other things. But yeah, now that learning curve, it makes me dizzy too. Just thinking about the learning curve with all the technology that is essential, but was sort of already sticking up its hand behind us going, hello, you jazz people, that musicians who've been just sitting around letting everybody else do your mixing for you. Guess what? When you're lighting for your studio, get off your butts. You can do it.
Yeah.
And you have to. We have to now.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nice broad question from Alexa there. What do you see happening in the future of music?
What we're doing here is in the now of music. It's really, I think, as we all can attest, it's really challenging to get people to tune in, though, and to pay money for it, because we're in such a free world of internet gifting. The internet came along, and all of a sudden nothing, we really saw the value of a lot of our music just peter out and just become expected by many to be delivered for nothing. Yeah. So that is, to answer that question really from deep down inside me, is, as an educator, is that the younger people, including myself, not that I'm younger, but I have to also be an example of this, is in the case of where it really is time to present something that is of value and meaning, such as in the old days with an LP and liner notes and photos and a band that actually toured. I think we have to just step back and revalue what our worth is. So that's part of the answer to that question, is there has to be some value or it's all going to fall apart. Nothing's going to appear. And it's going to make everything seem, well, if we're not careful, it could make things of quality seem redundant. So I'm hoping, in the way that I am educating this year, and the way that all of the mentors around me and the brilliant minds around me are working with music, that we also create within the system of this more worth and more value and more content that is not more content. There's already enough content, maybe less content, but with more meaning and more story. And without a doubt, I see that this time of social justice and gender justice change is finally having a platform to be heard. And in that alone, it's like, I get goosebumps thinking about what the future is going to look like. It's going to be full of even more quality and more messaging, rather than this materialistic me thing that kind of creeps into all genres of music these days.
Sure. So you were saying that you started in July to do the work with Manhattan School of Music? Were you working there before, and then this is a new role, or is this
Yeah,
completely new?
I was teaching private trumpet students, and I had a amazing vocalist, Sabat Perez, and a great trombone player, this guy Jack Cox. And between those 6 people, the last year, I really was inspired and realizing that the school is really finding. Stefan Harris was leading it for about 3 years, and yeah, so this school that used to be kind of it's a conservatory. It's a conservatory from back in the old days, very classical based. It's really, I could see the breadth of what was happening with the open-mindedness of these students. And not that I planned on being the director, but I got offered at the last minute because the COVID thing shut down this search that was happening for a new dean and associate dean and director of jazz. I was offered the position when I saw my date book being erased for the next year, and I was like, "Hey, honey, John, what do you think?" He's like, "Go for it. I'll support
Yeah.
you in getting Corinna through school. She's going to be going back to school in September with a mix of online and in person. We'll see how it goes." And yeah, so this has been it's been mind-blowing to see how a school that was so much about live interactions is now also going to be in a fairly hybrid situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they picked a good person, because I think you are an extraordinary educator.
Oh, thank you,
So,
Pam. Thank you.
There's a question about just to elaborate a bit more on. You mentioned your tune, "Dirty Bubbles," that was inspired by the passing of John Lewis,
Right.
and maybe you want to maybe talk a little bit more about John Lewis, or about that tune, the background to that tune.
That tune, it bubbled up in a sense because I do this kind of meditative. It is meditative. It's not kind of. When you're as busy as I am, especially in the past, and actually now it's so strange. My house is dirtier and more upset than ever, and I'm home all the time. But I think that's because we're home all the time. And I saw some funny memes. Jennifer Garner dancing around her laundry room, which is much nicer than my laundry room, and she's dancing, and her clothes are constantly changing, but nothing moves. Like the laundry all stays the same. It hasn't really moved. Nobody's done anything with it. That's kind of how I feel. But when I do have my moments of zen, I get to sit and connect with sound, which is the great thing about the trumpet. I think you know this. You can have all this chatter going on in your head, and then you get to connect with a big ohm, and then have it go through a chunk of metal, and there's something healing about it and something centering. So I found in a meditation moment where I was not consciously meditating, I just find a note, play with it, start writing some ideas off of it. I found 4 key centers, and I was definitely affected by the news of John Lewis passing. He was definitely someone I wanted to meet, but had been admiring for many, many years. I was friends with one of his friends, Dr. Billy Taylor, who was friends with Dr. King. And Dr. Billy Taylor, I feel, without me knowing it, because I came into living in the United States with very, very, very base information on this whole slavery mess and the whole systemic insanity that exists here. But within that system, Dr. Billy Taylor, who was in DC, found money for the Mary Lou Williams Jazz Festival. So I'm forever indebted to him because he gave me some of my most incredible gigs as a leader when I thought I was completely unqualified to be on such a stage with such players. And it was never about, it's a women's festival, you better have a women's band. It was more like, Ingrid, you're starting to play really well on that there trumpet. So would you please put a band together? Bring it down here. I'm like, of anybody? Yes. And here's your budget. Wow. It was in the 90s, it was breathtaking as far as that budget. And here's a fancy hotel, and here's dinner. And oh yeah, you do know you deserve to be treated this way, right? So my roots in really starting to read about the history of this country were from Dr. Taylor, who is definitely part of this legacy, and in really being patient for change, but also, you know, in the music area, best friends with Mary Lou Williams. So when full circle, so I started to write this tune, and I was listening to some podcasts and listening to one about the evil things they would do to, even after voting rights were passed, to black voters. They would ask them the most insane questions, like how many jelly beans in a jar, what's on this blank piece of paper? Oh, sorry, you answered wrong, you can't vote. And there was one that really struck me, which I thought was just so dirty, was this one about the bar of soap. It's like, how many bubbles in this bar of soap? Oh, sorry, wrong answer. Come on. Wow. I mean, there's some dirty, evil people out there. So it was more of a, sad celebration, but also that forward momentum of the change that I believe is in our future and is happening now with Black Lives Matter and more.
One of the last things I saw before lockdown, I went to, there's an art exhibition that opened and then closed very soon after, but called We Will Walk, which is about resistance and Black visual artists. And one of the speakers, there was like a day-long symposium, and one of the speakers was Doris Darby, who is an amazing sort of documentary photographer who kind of documented lots of the civil rights movement and kind of lived it. And she moved to Mississippi to kind of illegally teach Black people to read and write so they could try to pass the tests in order that they could vote. And it's incredible to hear her speak, and to she was a very young woman when she made that decision, but for her it didn't even feel, she just knew she had to do it, and she went and she did it. And there's so many incredible brave people that gave so much.
Yeah,
for sure.
Sounds really inspiring. I got to check her out too.
Yeah, there's a lot of it was about the concept of like yard art, so kind of found sculptures, and there was a really, it connected with jazz and improvised music as well, and there was a lot of references to that stuff, but also there was a really nice kind of, someone asked a question, the G's Bend quilt makers, so some of those quilts were in this exhibition, and someone asked a question which was a really, which was a very kind of earnest, regular, authentic question about some of the patterns from those quilts seem quite common to like African fabrics. So do you think that that's a reference point for them? And someone said, well, I think that actually we shouldn't be comparing one thing that we don't really value, because it's the idea of craft instead of fine art. We shouldn't sort of legitimize it by comparing it to something we do understand. And the panelists said, yeah, we're right at the start of talking about this and about understanding it. So we're all going to make mistakes, and we're going to, like, with the best of intentions, be clumsy and do the stuff, but we have to talk about it. And it feels like that resonates all the time. And if you think what's happened since I went to that talk was in March, the world has changed so much, right?
Oh my goodness. Thank gosh. It's like a big Pandora's box has been opened, and I hope it doesn't close until there's true healing and forward thinking taking over what's been horribly in place for too long. Tobias asked what I was drinking. On a happier note, on a joyful note of forward thinking, kombucha.
Nice.
Trying to stay healthy in these times. And that is really part of it, though. I have to say, one of my main focuses as an educator is to instill mental health in all, because without mental health, I really don't think playing music is that easy. And if you can't play music that easy, it leads to being in this zone of lizard brain, and other evil, mean things come out, and they're not necessary. And I find that that's another place where we get to be very fortunate in our sacred, for the most part, as instrumentalists, wordless music making, is to communicate on these levels of resonance and energy and heart and passion and understanding. And that's sort of that again. That's where this is such an exciting time to be in as a musician, because we have a forum of space to communicate with one another, whether it's through a duo online or a Zoom discussion, sharing music we love. I think there's a lot that can be done.
So it's probably time we should probably kind of wrap up, but where can people hear you next after this?
Wow, that's a great question. Bandcamp? No, I don't know. There is. I have a lot of stuff in my vaults, as we say, that I want to start to make some projects out of and revisit. So Project O is another band that was really fun. There's no live gigs happening yet. I might play down at the farmers market in a few Saturdays. We'll see. The weather's getting back to a normal place where we can play on our front yard. So we'll put the bands. We'll see who wants to come out with their masks and join the forces of good overtaking evil. And there's nothing really in the books till February, maybe. Although I could say that there's a record coming out that's kind of cool. It's called Artemis. It's on Blue Note. That will be out on September 11th. It's a pretty amazing group I'm involved with. And very, very fun band. Very strong and beautiful record.
We saw you at North Sea Jazz with that band, and it was glorious.
That was the first gig Alison Miller did with us. She flew in and just sat on the drums, and the band became a unit of completion.
Yeah.
And I'm really excited for people to just be empowered by this music. It's very special. And I just think, people were asking about the future of the music and where it's at. It's the present. It's what skills and what gifts others are willing to share within the context of the music that's being made. So there's a beautiful piece of moving art that Cecile made for the Goddess of the Hunt. If you haven't seen that, you can go to Blue Note, the Blue Note website, and see that. It really goes with the music. If you watch it and trance out with it, it's just adding to the experience.
Well, I'm sure that there will be lots of traffic to that site now after this. Thank you so much for doing the stream and for doing this. It's been great. Lots of people.
Good luck, Vortex. Good luck. Thank you, Daniel, for putting it together. Thank you, Kim.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel.
Miss you, London. Miss you. Cheers.
So thanks everyone for watching and for supporting us while we're obviously not able to run gigs that are live. We do have a crowdfunder that's running at the moment with some really nice kind of rewards for people's very kind donations. So you can check that out. You can go to the website and find the details of that. People have been just exceptionally generous, and it's really, really appreciated because it's a really tough time for venues right now. So it's really nice to feel that community, even if it's from afar. So check that out. But thank you, Ingrid and Daniel, and see you both soon.
All right. Peace and love, everybody. Thank you.